The stars looked cold and distant through the viewing window of the USS Frontier. Captain Jake Martinez stood in his command chair, watching the endless black space that stretched beyond their ship. His crew had been out here for 3 months, now, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that might support life. It was routine work, but Jake knew how important it was. Humanity was still new to space travel, and they needed to find their place among the stars. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the communications array," said Lisa Carter from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. Lisa had been with Jake's crew for 2 years, and she never got excited about nothing. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" Lisa frowned at her screens. "It's a signal, but it's really weak, and it's not coming from any human ship or station. The computer can't figure out what language it is, but there's something about it that makes me think it's important." Dr. Amanda Torres looked up from her science station. She was the ship's science officer, responsible for studying anything new they found in space. "Can you play it for us?" Lisa nodded and pressed some buttons. A sound filled the bridge that made everyone go quiet. It was clearly voices, but they were speaking in words no human had ever heard. The voices sounded scared, desperate, like they were begging for help. Even though nobody could understand the words, the fear in those voices was clear as day. "That's the universal peace frequency," said Ryan Brooks, the chief engineer. He was a big man with grease-stained hands who knew more about space technology than anyone on the ship. "Every ship in the galaxy is supposed to monitor that frequency. It's only used for emergencies." Jake felt a chill run down his back. The universal peace frequency was something the Galactic Council had set up years ago, before humans had even joined the galactic community. It was supposed to be used only when entire worlds were in danger. "Where is it coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her controls for a moment. "It's coming from Sector 779. That's about 6 hours away at full speed. But Captain, that sector isn't supposed to have any inhabited planets." Jake stared at the star map on the main screen. Sector 779 was at the edge, unknown space, in an area that most ships avoided because there was nothing there worth finding. But if someone was broadcasting on the universal peace frequency from there, it meant something terrible was happening. "Captain," said Amanda, studying her sensors, "I'm not reading any ships or stations in that area, but that signal is definitely coming from there." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Jake knew he had a choice to make. Protocol said they should report the signal to Earth Command and wait for orders. But that could take days, and whoever was sending that signal might not have days. "Ryan, how fast can you get us there?" Jake asked. The engineer checked his instruments. "If I push the engines, we can make it in 4 hours, but we'll be running hot and we won't have much power left for anything else." Jake looked around at his crew. Lisa was watching him with worried eyes. Amanda was still listening to the alien voices coming through the speakers. Ryan was waiting for orders, ready to push the ship as hard as needed. "Take us there," Jake said. "Full speed." The USS Frontier turned toward Sector 779 and jumped to faster-than-light travel. As they flew through space, the signal got stronger. The alien voices became clearer, more desperate. Even though nobody could understand the words, it was obvious that whoever was speaking was running out of time. 4 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Sector 779. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent with shock. There was a star system ahead of them with several planets orbiting a yellow sun. But the system was under attack. Massive ships, bigger than anything in human records, were moving between the planets like hungry predators. These ships were dark and strange-looking, covered in what looked like armor that seemed to move and shift. "My God," whispered Amanda. "They're destroying everything." Jake watched in horror as one of the massive ships fired some kind of weapon at a planet. The weapon didn't just hit the planet. It seemed to eat away at it, leaving nothing but empty space where land and cities had been moments before. "Captain, I'm reading thousands of smaller ships trying to escape," said Lisa. Her voice was shaking. "They're civilian ships, trying to get away from those things. But the massive ships were faster. Jake watched as they hunted down the fleeing civilians like wolves chasing sheep. Every ship they caught simply disappeared, consumed by weapons that seemed to devour matter itself. "Are we getting this recorded?" Jake asked. "Every second of it," said Amanda. Suddenly, alarms started going off all over the bridge. Lisa looked at her screens with wide eyes. "Captain, one of those big ships has spotted us. It's turning this way." Jake didn't need to be told twice. "Ryan, get us out of here. Now." The USS Frontier spun around and jumped back into faster-than-light travel just as a beam of dark energy passed through the space where they had been floating. They had escaped, but barely. As they flew back toward human space, Jake stared at the recordings they had made. Whatever those ships were, they weren't just attacking the system. They were consuming it, eating everything they found. And they had done it without any attempt to communicate, without any warning, without any mercy. "Captain," said Lisa quietly, "what were those things?" Jake shook his head. He had no answer. But he knew one thing for certain. Humanity, and every other species in the galaxy, were in terrible danger. The USS Frontier arrived at Earth's Deep Space Command Station 3 days after witnessing the destruction in Sector 779. Captain Jake Martinez had barely slept during the entire journey back. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those massive dark ships consuming everything in their path. Admiral Patricia Wells was waiting for them in the main briefing room. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had been fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy for over 20 years. When Jake walked into the room carrying the recordings, she could see the fear in his face. "Show me what you found," she said without any greeting. Jake activated the holographic display, and the briefing room filled with images of the attack. Admiral Wells watched in silence as the dark ships destroyed planets and hunted down fleeing civilians. Her face grew more serious with each passing minute. "How many ships did you count?" she asked when the recording ended. "At least 50 of the large ones," Jake replied. "But there could have been more. They were spread across the entire system." Dr. Kevin Stone, Earth's leading expert on alien life, leaned forward in his chair. He was a thin man with thick glasses, who spent most of his time studying alien technology and cultures. "I've never seen ships like these in any of our databases. The way they move, the way their weapons work, it's completely different from anything we know about." Admiral Wells stood up and walked to the large window that looked out at Earth. "There are legends," she said quietly. "Stories that some of the older alien races tell about something called the Devourers. Most people think they're just myth, scary stories to frighten children." "What do the stories say?" Jake asked. "They say the Devourers are older than any civilization in the galaxy. They sleep for thousands of years, then wake up hungry. When they wake up, they don't just conquer planets, they consume everything. Every living thing, every piece of technology, every trace that a civilization ever existed." Dr. Stone was studying the recordings on his portable computer. "If these are really the Devourers from the old stories, then we have a problem bigger than anyone realizes. According to the legends, they don't stop until they've eaten everything in their path." Admiral Wells turned back to face them. "How long before they reach inhabited systems?" Jake looked at the star charts. "Based on their speed and direction, they'll hit the Kalari colonies in about 2 weeks. After that, they'll be in the heart of galactic civilization." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Kalari were a peaceful people who had never built a strong military. Their colonies were home to millions of innocent people who would have no way to defend themselves against the Devourers. "We have to warn everyone," said Dr. Stone. "Every species, every government, every military force in the galaxy." Admiral Wells nodded, but her expression was grim. "The problem is most alien governments don't trust us yet. Humanity has only been part of the galactic community for 30 years. Many species still see us as newcomers who don't understand how things work. But we have something they don't," Jake said. "Our quantum communication network." Admiral Wells looked at him with interest. "Explain." "Our quantum entanglement communication system can reach every corner of the galaxy instantly. Most alien species still use slower methods that take days or weeks to send messages across space. We could warn everyone at the same time. Dr. Stone shook his head. If we reveal our quantum communication technology, every species in the galaxy will want it. Some might even try to take it by force. And if we don't reveal it, everyone dies, Jake replied. Admiral Wells was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, she made her decision. Prepare a message. Send the recordings to every known government in the galaxy. Tell them exactly what we saw and what we think it means. What should we say about ourselves? Dr. Stone asked. The truth, Admiral Wells said, that we're humanity, we're trying to help, and we think we need to work together if any of us are going to survive. Over the next 6 hours, Earth's quantum communication network sent the same message to hundreds of different worlds. The message was simple and direct. It showed the recordings of the Devourer attack, explained what humanity believed they were, and ended with a request for all species to work together against the threat. The responses came back almost immediately, and they were not encouraging. The proud Zenthari Empire sent a message saying they could handle any threat with their advanced shield technology. The Crystalline Confederation claimed their energy weapons were powerful enough to destroy any enemy. The Mechanical Sith Collective said their logical battle strategies were superior to any organic military thinking, but there were other responses too. Some species were terrified and begged for help. Others accused humanity of making up the threat to gain power in galactic politics. A few demanded that Earth share its quantum communication technology as payment for their cooperation. They're not listening, Dr. Stone said as more messages came in. Half of them think we're lying, and the other half think they can handle the Devourers alone. Admiral Wells was reading reports from across the galaxy. 3 more systems have gone dark in the last day. The Devourers are moving faster than we thought. Jake looked at the star map, watching red marks appear where systems had stopped communicating. How do we make them understand? We don't, Admiral Wells said. We show them. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency meeting on Nexus Prime. Every major species will send representatives. We're going to that meeting and we're going to make them listen. What if they won't? Jake asked. Admiral Wells looked at the recordings of the Devourers one more time. Then we'll fight alone if we have to, but I don't think it will come to that. When species start disappearing, even the proudest governments will realize they need help. She turned to face her officers. Prepare the fastest ship we have. We're going to Nexus Prime, and we're going to convince the galaxy to fight together, because if we don't, there won't be a galaxy left to save. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting hall on Nexus Prime was the largest room Admiral Patricia Wells had ever seen. Representatives from hundreds of different species filled the massive space, their voices creating a noise like angry bees. Some looked like humans, others were completely alien, beings made of crystal, floating energy clouds, and creatures with too many arms or eyes. General Helen Pierce, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, stood at the speaking platform, in the center of the hall. She was a strong woman who had spent years earning respect among alien diplomats, but today even she looked nervous. Behind her, a holographic display showed the path of destruction the Devourers had left across space. Honored representatives, Helen began, her voice carrying across the hall through translation devices. In the past week, 7 star systems have gone completely silent. We believe they have all been consumed by the threat we warned you about. A tall, blue-skinned representative of the Zenthari Empire stood up. His name was High Commander Vex, and he spoke with the confidence of someone whose people had never lost a war. The Zenthari have reviewed your recordings, humans. These ships are large, yes, but our shield technology has protected us for 1,000 years. We do not need help, from newcomers to handle raiders. Murmurs of agreement came from other representatives. Many species had similar thoughts. They had survived in space for thousands of years while humans had barely left their home planet. A being made entirely of living crystal, representing the Crystalline Confederation, began to glow brighter as it spoke. Our energy weapons can cut through any known material. If these Devourers come to our space, they will be destroyed like all who have threatened us before. Commander Tony Rodriguez, humanity's military representative, stepped forward. He was a calm man who had studied every military strategy known to the galaxy. With respect, honored representatives, you're thinking about this wrong. The Devourers aren't just another enemy with better ships, they're something completely different. How so, human? Asked a mechanical voice. The Sith Collective's representative was a robot with glowing red eyes. Our analysis shows they use unconventional weapons, but any threat can be calculated and defeated with proper logic. Tony activated his own holographic display. It showed detailed analysis of the Devourer attacks that his team had prepared during the journey to Nexus Prime. Look at how they move. Look at how they fight. They don't follow any military doctrine we know about. They don't try to capture resources or negotiate surrender. They just consume everything and move on. The hall grew quieter as representatives studied the tactical analysis. Tony continued. Your shields, your weapons, your strategies, they're all designed to fight enemies who think like you do. The Devourers don't think like anyone in this room. High Commander Vex laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You expect us to believe that creatures who destroy everything are somehow superior to civilizations that have mastered space for millennia? I expect you to believe the evidence, Tony replied calmly. He changed the display to show communication logs. The Kalari tried to contact the Devourers before their colonies were attacked. They offered to negotiate, to surrender, to pay tribute. The Devourers never responded. They just kept consuming. A reptilian representative hissed, "The Kalari are weak. Their military was always inadequate." The Nexari weren't, Tony said, showing new data. They had one of the strongest defense fleets in their sector. Their ships were destroyed in less than 4 hours. Not defeated, consumed. The Devourers took their technology and made it part of their own ships. This caused more murmuring in the hall. The Nexari had been respected warriors. If they had fallen so quickly, maybe the threat was more serious than many representatives had thought. General Pierce stepped forward again. We're not here to argue about who has the best military. We're here because we need to work together. Every hour we spend debating, the Devourers get closer to more inhabited systems. And what exactly are you proposing, humans? Asked the crystalline representative. Tony activated a new display showing fleet formations and tactical plans. We combine our fleets into one unified force. Each species contributes what they do best. Zenthari shields, crystalline weapons, Sith, tactical computers, human coordination. Together we might have a chance. The hall erupted in angry voices. Representatives stood up, shouting over each other in dozens of languages. The translation devices couldn't keep up with all the different arguments happening at once. "Quiet!" boomed a voice that made everyone stop talking. Ambassador Thane of the Elder Council rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. He was old even by the standards of his long-lived species, and he had seen more of galactic history than anyone else in the room. "I have heard the stories of the Devourers since I was young," Thane said slowly. "My grandfather told me his grandfather had seen them, in the time before the Council existed. The stories say they come when the galaxy grows too comfortable, too divided. They feed on our pride as much as our worlds." He looked around the hall with ancient eyes. The humans are right about one thing. We cannot fight this threat alone, but they are wrong about something else. This is not about combining our militaries. This is about learning to fight in a way none of us have ever fought before. High Commander Vex stood up again. The Zenthari will not follow human battle plans. We have our own ways of war. And that, said Ambassador Thane, is exactly why the Devourers will consume you first. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed as an automated voice announced, "Priority alert. Multiple systems reporting complete communication loss. All representatives return to designated areas immediately." General Pierce received an urgent message on her communication device. Her face went pale as she read it. "The Devourers have just destroyed the Zenthari border colonies. They're moving faster than our worst estimates." High Commander Vex stared at her in shock. "That's impossible. Our defenses are gone," Pierce interrupted, "along with 2 million of your people." The hall fell completely silent. Representatives looked at each other with new understanding. The threat was real, it was close, and their individual military might meant nothing against it. "So," said Ambassador Thane quietly, Who will be the first to admit they need help? Haven's Gate was the largest space station ever built. It floated in empty space between 3 star systems, a massive ring of metal and lights that could hold thousands of ships. Now it was full beyond anything its builders had ever imagined. Ships from hundreds of different worlds crowded around the station, creating the greatest fleet in galactic history. Captain Nicole Grant of the USS Defiance looked out at the incredible sight through her bridge window. Xanthari battleships with their silver shields floated next to crystalline vessels that looked like living jewels. Mechanical ships from the Scythe Collective moved in perfect formations, while organic vessels from dozens of other species filled every available space. "I count over 10,000 ships," said Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh, her second in command. He was a steady man who never got excited, but even he sounded amazed. "I never thought I'd see so many different species working together." "Working together might be too strong a phrase," replied Chief Tactical Officer Maria Santos from her station. She was watching the communication channels and they were full of arguments. "Half of these ships can't even talk to each other properly." Nicole sighed as she read the latest reports. 3 days had passed since the emergency meeting on Nexus Prime, and the alliance was already falling apart. The different species had agreed to combine their fleets, but they couldn't agree on how to fight together. The Xanthari wanted to use their traditional battle formations, with their ships forming defensive walls while other vessels attacked from behind their shields. The Crystalline Confederation insisted their energy weapons needed to be at the front of any battle. The Sith Collective had calculated the most logical attack patterns, but their plans didn't account for the chaos of real combat. "Captain Grant, you're needed in the command center," came a voice over the ship's communication system. Nicole made her way through Haven's Gate to the massive command center at the heart of the station. The room was filled with representatives from every species in the fleet, and they were all arguing at once. Holographic displays showed different battle plans, each one completely different from the others. High Commander Vex of the Xanthari was speaking loudly to a group of other commanders. "The Xanthari way of war has succeeded for 1,000 years. We form the defensive line and everyone else follows our lead." "Your way failed against the Devourers," replied Commander Kess of the Crystalline Forces. Her crystal body was glowing, bright red with anger. "Our weapons are more powerful. We should lead the attack." A mechanical voice cut through the argument. "Emotion leads to tactical errors," said the Sith representative. "Only logical analysis can determine the correct approach to this problem." Ambassador Thane stood in the center of the room, looking tired. The old alien had been trying to keep the alliance together, but even his wisdom couldn't solve the problem of too many different ideas about how to fight. "The Devourers will be here in 18 hours, he said quietly, and the room fell silent. "We have the largest fleet in galactic history, but we're still arguing about how to use it." Nicole stepped forward. She knew this was her moment to speak, even though many of the alien commanders didn't respect humans enough to listen. "What if we stop thinking about this like a traditional battle?" High Commander Vex turned to look at her with annoyance. "What do you mean, human?" "Every species here is trying to fight the way you've always fought," Nicole explained. "But the Devourers aren't like any enemy you've faced before. Maybe we need to fight differently too." Commander Kess's crystal form flickered with interest. "Explain." Nicole activated a holographic display showing the structure of the combined fleet. "Instead of one big formation with everyone following one plan, we create smaller mixed groups. Each group has ships from different species working together." "That makes no sense," said the Sith representative. "Different tactical doctrines cannot be efficiently combined." "Actually, they can," Nicole replied. "Human military doctrine is based on something we call organized chaos. We plan for things to go wrong, and we train our people to adapt when they do." She changed the display to show her idea more clearly. "Put a Xanthari ship with strong shields together with a crystalline ship with powerful weapons and a scythe ship with good computers. When they face the Devourers, they can adapt their tactics based on what actually happens, not what they planned to happen." The room was quiet as the commanders studied her proposal. It was completely different from how any of their species normally fought. Instead of rigid formations and careful plans, it was based on flexibility, and quick thinking. "This is madness," High Commander Vex said finally. "Our crews don't know how to work with alien technology." "Then we'd better learn fast," Nicole replied, "because in 17 hours, we're going to face an enemy that doesn't follow any rules we know." Ambassador Thane stepped forward. "The human has a point. Our traditional ways of war have all failed against the Devourers. Perhaps we need a new way." Over the next few hours, the fleet began to reorganize itself according to Nicole's plan. It wasn't easy. Crews who had never worked with aliens before had to learn new communication methods and fighting styles. Some groups worked well together, immediately, while others struggled to coordinate their actions. Lieutenant Commander Walsh watched the reorganization from the USS Defiance bridge. "Think this will work?" "It has to," Nicole replied, "because the alternative is extinction." As the fleet prepared for battle, long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of the system. The Devourers were coming, and they were bringing more ships than anyone had expected. The dark vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of hungry insects, their strange technology making them hard to count accurately. "How many?" Nicole asked. Maria Santos studied her instruments with growing concern. "At least 3,000 of the large ships and thousands more smaller ones. Captain, they outnumber us." Nicole looked out at the combined fleet surrounding. Haven's Gate. 10,000 ships from hundreds of worlds. Crews who had learned to work together in just a few hours, facing an enemy that had been consuming civilizations for thousands of years. "All ships, this is Captain Grant," she said into the fleet communication system. "Remember your training. Stay flexible, support your partners, and don't try to fight this battle alone. We're stronger together than any of us could be apart." The Devourers kept coming, their dark ships growing larger as they approached. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The battle for Haven's Gate began with silence. The Devourer fleet hung in space like a dark cloud, their ships so black they seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars. Captain Nicole Grant watched from the bridge of the USS Defiance as thousands of enemy vessels slowly moved toward the combined galactic fleet. "They're not attacking yet," observed Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh. "They're just studying us." "Maybe they've never seen this many ships working together before," replied Chief Tactical Officer Maria Santos. She was monitoring communications from across the fleet, and the mixed tactical groups were reporting ready for battle. Nicole opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. "All units, remember the plan. Stay with your partners, adapt to what happens, and don't try to fight alone. We can do this." The first attack came without warning. Beams of dark energy shot out from the Devourer ships, not aimed at the galactic fleet but at Haven's Gate itself. The massive station's shields flared and died within seconds. The station began to break apart, huge pieces of metal spinning into space. "They're trying to scatter us," Nicole realized. "Without the station, we lose our coordination point." But the mixed tactical groups had been trained for exactly this situation. Instead of panicking when their central command was destroyed, the small groups of ships from different species began working together just as they had practiced. Group 7, made up of a Zenthari battleship, 2 crystalline fighters, and a Scythe computer ship, moved to protect a group of civilian vessels that had been trapped near the station. The Zenthari ship's shields protected everyone, while the crystalline ships attacked the approaching Devourers. The Sith ship calculated the best escape route and guided the civilians to safety. Group 12 found themselves facing 3 massive Devourer ships at once. Instead of following their original species battle tactics, they did something none of them had ever tried before. The human destroyer used its speed to distract the enemy while the alien ships in the group coordinated a combined attack that destroyed all 3 Devourers. But for every small victory, the galactic fleet was taking heavy losses. The Devourers were not just destroying ships, they were consuming them, adding the destroyed vessel's technology to their own forces. With each ship they ate, they became stronger. "Captain, we're losing," Maria reported. "The Devourers are adapting to our tactics faster than we expected." Nicole watched the battle displays with growing concern. The mixed groups were fighting well, but there were simply too many enemy ships. Traditional space combat wasn't working against an enemy that grew stronger with every victory. Then Lieutenant Sarah Hayes, who was monitoring all communications frequencies, noticed something strange. "Captain, I'm picking up signals between the Devourer ships. They're not random, there's a pattern." "What kind of pattern?" Nicole asked. Sarah worked at her computer for several minutes analyzing the enemy communications. "It's like they're all connected somehow. Every ship is receiving the same signals at the same time." Dr. Amanda Torres, who had been transferred to the USS Defiance for the battle, looked up from her science station with excitement. "Sarah's right. Look at how they move. It's too coordinated to be individual ships making decisions. They're operating as one mind." Nicole stared at the battle display with new understanding. If they're all connected, then they all have the same weakness. "What do you mean?" Steve asked. "If we can find whatever is controlling them and destroy it, the whole fleet might shut down." Sarah expanded her analysis of the Devourer communications. "The signals are strongest from that ship." She pointed to a massive vessel in the center of the enemy fleet, larger than any other Devourer ship they had seen. Nicole opened a channel to every remaining ship in the Galactic fleet. "All units, new target. We need to get to the large ship in the center of their formation." "That's their command vessel." "That's suicide," came High Commander Vex's voice over the radio. "There are hundreds of ships protecting it." "Then we make them move," Nicole replied. She had an idea, but it was dangerous and would require every ship in the fleet to work together perfectly. "All units, listen carefully. We're going to do something that's never been tried before. Every ship, every species, every weapon system. We coordinate one massive attack at exactly the same time." The plan was simple, but nearly impossible to execute. Every ship in the fleet would target the command vessel simultaneously, overwhelming its defenses with sheer numbers. But it required perfect timing across thousands of ships with different communication systems and weapon types. For the next 10 minutes, ships from hundreds of different species worked together to coordinate the attack. Xanthari commanders shared shield frequencies with crystalline weapon operators. Sith computers calculated firing solutions for human missile systems. Species that had been enemies for centuries trusted each other with their lives. "All ships report ready," Sarah announced. Nicole took a deep breath. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Fire everything." 10,000 weapons fired at once. Energy beams, missiles, plasma cannons, and weapons that had no human names all struck the Devourer command ship at the same instant. The massive vessel's shields collapsed, its armor cracked, and then it exploded in a flash of light that could be seen across the star system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one by one, the Devourer ships began to drift. Their coordinated movements stopped. Some ships started attacking each other, confused without their central control. Others simply went dark and began floating helplessly in space. "We did it," Steve whispered. "They're shutting down." But Nicole wasn't celebrating yet. She watched as the remaining Devourer ships, now operating on basic programming, slowly moved away from the battle area. They weren't destroyed, just sleeping again until someone or something could wake them up. "The galaxy is safe," she said finally. "For now." In the days that followed, as the combined fleet helped rescue survivors and clean up the battlefield, something remarkable had happened. The species that had come together to fight the Devourers didn't want to go back to being separate and suspicious of each other. Captain Jake Martinez, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of his new flagship looking out at the mixed crews working together. Humans, Xanthari, crystalline beings, and dozens of other species were serving on the same ships, sharing their knowledge and building friendships that crossed the barriers between worlds. "Think it will last?" asked Lisa Carter, who had also been promoted after the battle. Jake smiled. "I think we've learned something important. We're stronger together than we ever were apart. And that's a lesson the galaxy won't forget." The Devourers slept once more in the dark between stars. But the unity they had forced the galaxy to discover remained, a light that would shine long after the last battlefield had been cleared and the last memorial built. Humanity had saved the galaxy not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but by teaching everyone the most important lesson of all, that sometimes the greatest strength comes from helping others find their own.